Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Jenny McCafferty for the Michigan Golfer. And today, it's winter. We're inside at the Kendall Golf Academy with none other than Dave Kendall here on my right. How are you doing, Dave?
Very well, Jenny. Thanks for visiting on a cold day.
It's a fun thing to do. And on my left is Patrick Wilkes Krier. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
Krier.
Yeah,
Okay.
Krier. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's great to be here. So we're here because a big change is happening here at Kendall Golf Academy, and I'm going to let Dave talk about the change.
Well, as of the 1st of 2023, we're turning over the Kendall Academy of Golf to Patrick. Patrick he probably started taking lessons here right at the beginning. We started in 1997. And Patrick told me he was 13 years old then, probably just entering high school, and so he was here right from the beginning. And then Patrick tried to be a tour player for about 10 years, and I'd say pretty darn successfully, because he certainly learned a lot about player development and became an extraordinary player himself. He decided he wanted to move back to Ann Arbor, where he grew up, and raise his family here, and I can't think of a better place for him if he wants to do that and be in golf than be here. So I'm kind of excited about the future of the academy, because I think that Patrick will do a better job than I've been able to do, because of, he's at a time in his life when he has the tremendous energy, and he has I think of all the people I've known in golf that I've worked with, that he'd be my number one choice to follow us. And I still like to be around and a part of it, and he's for that. And so I'm happy for him, but I'm also happy for the customers at Kendall Academy, because I think that he'll be able to just pick up where we left off and go further.
Well, Patrick, that's quite an introduction, and talk a little bit about how you first connected with Kendall Golf Academy.
Yeah, I mean, I was a young golfer and wanted to work hard and get better, and this was the obvious place to do that. So I think anyone in my seat was we were practicing here at Miles of Golf, and Dave was the obvious choice to kind of start leading our golf improvement. So I don't remember exactly how it started, but I definitely wound up here. And my competitive career really took off then. That's when things really started up. And with Dave's help, that led to me playing some successful high school golf at Ann Arbor Huron, and then earning a scholarship to play college golf at Ball State. I worked with Scott Hayes as well throughout some of that time. And it was right after college golf that I kind of started the journey. I moved down to Florida shortly after graduating and started playing competitively, but never really lost touch with Ann Arbor, certainly, and didn't lose touch with Dave. During that whole time I was playing, which amounted to a little more than 9 years, after bad rounds, I suppose I had to start thinking about, potential other directions of my life, and I didn't want to do that. But towards the end, it became clear that I had a choice to make. And my first call was to Dave. I wanted to be in a place where I would be happy raising my family, because we were expecting my first daughter, and my parents were here, and I wanted to work in golf for sure. I was and still am obsessed with it and like being around it. And I couldn't have thought of a better person to ask. And right away he said, of course. And that was a real blessing for me. I was confused and a little frightened about where to go after that, the end of my competitive career. And Dave, with open arms, brought me in here to start teaching, and it was, it's been amazing ever since.
Well, all golf pros do some teaching. It really is part of the job. But it's a big change to go from some teaching to pretty much all teaching. What's that been like for you?
It wasn't actually hard, and I enjoyed it right away. When, I moved here in the spring of 15 and basically spent the first month or two just watching Dave and the other instructors here teach, and you get pretty inspired by that. Not only inspired by in the moment when they're helping students improve and seeing the satisfaction and the enjoyment of that whole process, but after they're done teaching lessons, they just talk about the lessons they taught, and they talk about the things they want to learn in golf. And it's like, this is not a job, right? So it is a process that the instructors here at the Academy have always enjoyed. And I was eager to be a part of that. It was exciting for me. And it's been that way since I started.
So, Dave, what do you look for in a good teacher?
Oh, my gosh. I think it's somebody who's understands the difference between spewing out a bunch of information and technical ability, and somebody who's a real good coach. Somebody who can help a person have confidence and can approach things in a way that makes it simpler. Whenever I watched a teacher that I admired, I always found that after they got done speaking, I wanted to go right straight to the range and experiment with what they were talking about, because all of a sudden it seemed simpler to me. So I think we're dealing with, I think golf isn't easy. And I have a lot of empathy for those who are taking it on. But if you can kind of condense it down into something that they can hang on to or compare it to something else that they've done before successfully, or to make that transfer from just trying to memorize it to instead trying to understand it, is kind of what sometimes you have to take a different angle, say it in a different way. So they go, oh, yeah, why didn't you say that the first time? Oh, yeah, well, I meant to say that the first time, but I said it a different way. I had a fella here one time who was, I forgot the name of the department at the University of Michigan, but it's rocket science, but they have a different name for it. Anyways, I call it rocket science. And they say that golf isn't brain surgery or rocket science. Some people say it's harder. But the fella who was the head of the SISS 20-some years ago, he understood concepts. He understands science way better than I do. But he doesn't see how, at first, what he's doing with his golf coincides with something that he knows very well. So if you can help him make that transition and say, hey, it's just it's science, and you speak at it from that way, it's the physics of a shot is path, face, relationships. It starts to seem simpler to him, but he never thought of it that way, and so try and make him make that connection.
So using the word physics probably got his attention.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a beginner. He was retiring, and he wanted to take up golf in retirement. Somebody told him that he should take lessons, before he starts fooling around with it. And it's very uncommon that happens. But so, anyways, I started talking with him about the simple physics. He said, "Well, I'm a physicist," and I said, "How am I doing?" Because I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm kind of a forced to deal with it. But so that was funny. He said, "You're doing pretty well." It wasn't that he doesn't understand physics. So, anyways, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned was coach. And you were a coach at University of Michigan.
Yeah, that opportunity came out of nowhere. I actually forged that relationship originally here at Miles of Golf. I worked in the shop with Chris Witten, who's now at the GAM, as we know, but he was the head coach at Michigan at the time. And his assistant at the time, Nick Pumford, was leaving to go coach at Oakland University, where he still is. And Chris and I had bonded when we worked inside the shop and stayed in touch that entire time. And I was here teaching, and he saw me and kind of thought, you should come coach at Michigan. And originally I said no. I was having fun here. He took me to visit their building and the process, and it was too interesting for me to not do it.
The new one?
Yeah, the new building, yeah. And so I thought it'd be a worthwhile thing to try. And I guess I did that for 3 years before he left and I left. And I forged some really great friendships then, and I learned a lot working with such advanced and competitive golfers. And really my job there was what it is here, is I just have a smaller and very consistent unit to do it with. But it was just morning till night helping them get better at golf. And it was a great experience. Yeah, I learned a lot really quickly while doing that job. And I think I bring a lot of that education back to what I do here now, too.
Well, so when you're working with college players, by definition, they're good players. But some of the people here are probably beginners. There must be a big difference.
I'll tell you where there's a similarity is most of the students I end up getting and keeping and working with all the time have the same passion for it that a college player will. And that's what I'm connecting with them. So regardless of how much they've played or practiced in their life or their execution rate, it's easy for me to help a really passionate student get better because we're both kind of looking at golf the same way. And frankly, the things that a really skilled college golfer are working on is a lot of the same fundamentals that a beginner is working on. It's just at a higher level. So the conversations don't change a lot. It's still a lot of the basic stuff that everyone's working on. And I enjoy both ends of that spectrum.
I think people who might watch, say, golf on TV now and then are surprised that even the pros are still taking lessons.
I think, a skilled player, Tiger Woods changed coaches a few times. But I think that it isn't that person is going to teach him how to play golf. He wants looking for someone that he can trust that can tell him where he is.
What his failure might be or a failing might be.
That, when it's not working, there's a reason. And the player is assuming that he or she is doing what they always were doing when they were playing well. But obviously, if they were, the results would be the way it used to be, but it isn't. And somebody who can help them understand that even though it seems like you're doing everything you were, there's a missing piece. And I think there becomes a trust between the player and the coach that they know that they're telling them straight. They may not like to hear it, but that they're on the same side and we're pulling together. But usually a person who's best at being able to prove that to them, that I can prove it if you're listening. Sometimes they're not wanting to, but and if you do prove it, they will listen. And now they're open to, if you've helped them with that, now they want to know other things that you could help them with, because maybe it's that they've gotten a little comfortable out of position, and so it's not working the way it used to be, even though they think they're doing the same thing. But then after that, that is so helpful to them, because now they're not assuming that they are where they used to be, because the ball says they aren't where they used to be, and who are they going to believe? So anyway, I think that it isn't that I'm such a better player than that other guy. No, I'm on their side. I understand some of the X's and O's of what's going on. I have a perspective advantage, and that I can, go from any angle and watch, and I can communicate with them what they like, what they not like, that kind of thing, and that perspective helps. It's like a second opinion with a doctor or something.
I like the reference you made to the fact that the ball talks.
Yeah, sometimes I ignore it, or people don't know how to speak that language. I'd say it talks, but you have to help them to interpret that. And that. See, if they understand it, then they're going to be better at being able to analyze it. If they know how it was built, and they built it, they're going to know how to fix it. because that's important. If you didn't know how something is constructed, how are you going to be able to repair it? So.
Oh. So, Patrick, what I'm thinking about is you're meeting somebody for the first time who's taking a lesson. Where do you start finding out how they play?
The first place is you ask them their opinion of their own game, which it's helpful to know probably from a psychological stance as much as just a golf stance too, right? But they'll give you an idea of the scores they're shooting, the handicap they carry, and if that's honest, we can start with that. For me, the proof in the pudding is probably a combination of the results they're having with hitting shots when they're warming up or hitting shots in front of me, but also what their swing looks like, especially when I slow it down on video. It can be a nerve-wracking experience to take a lesson with someone, and if that's causing worse than normal results with the actual flight, their swing won't change dramatically on video, and I can start extracting kind of some positions and movements that I could see as being good or bad from that.
It's really hard to change a swing. How do you go about getting somebody to make a big change like that?
Well, I think that my job becomes trying to find the easiest way or the easiest things to change and actually get something good out of it. I wouldn't ask someone just to change it for fun or just because maybe it'll be better, right? Because it is really hard. That's always been the greatest challenge with my own game. The information is nice and where we need to go, the direction is good, but actually making the changes is hard. And it usually, it has to start with an understanding, and it has to probably start with physically being able to process the movements. That comes a lot of times without actually hitting a golf ball. And then usually we have to formulate some sort of drill where a golf ball gets hit. So your brain can kind of start, figuring out that muscle memory with the new movement. So it's kind of that complicated process.
It sounds really complicated. And what I'm thinking about is the old aphorism, you drive for show and putt for dough. So how much time do people spend learning more about putting?
We give putting lessons year-round, a little less so when it's snowing outside because our green is covered in it too outside. But I give plenty of putting lessons. Most of the students we have, I would say, are probably more interested in starting with improving their ball striking. And to be honest, I would say most of them probably need to address that first anyway. That's where it becomes helpful for us to get kind of a clearer picture of their full game, which really can only happen with their expert analysis, but really on the golf course. So if I can play with a student and see what's hampering their scores, sometimes it means we don't have to go back and work on your golf swing. It's something else. So the on-course experience helps with that kind of analysis.
Where do you play on course?
Washtenaw Golf Club. Yeah.
No surprise there. So, Dave, one of the things that I always think about is when you're putting, different courses, different days, the greens can be very different. They can be fast, they can be slow, they can be wet, whatever. How do you approach teaching people putting in different conditions?
Well, a lot of times players will putt better on their home course than when they travel, and it's nothing like it because, there's ways to evaluate as you look at a person when they're playing. Do they have a good awareness of speed? Because, I think the best putters are the best at controlling speed because line is kind of dependent upon speed. Most putts aren't straight, so if you don't hit at the right speed, it doesn't break at the right time. So when greens are different, over at Washtenaw, they're quite fast most all the time, and they're pretty slopey.
Slopey. There's a new word.
Yes. They have a lot of contour. So it actually, it'll actually expose a person who isn't good at speed, isn't good at read. So I really want to look at pace. Do they have a concept of that? Because most people would think the best line putter, best at putting the ball in line, is going to be the best putter. Well, not necessarily, because if they hit it the right speed, they always have a short next one. So if they don't hit at the right speed, they may sometimes have a longer putt coming back than they had in the first place. So, having an awareness of that, helping players understand that, it's never one thing. It's always a coordination of things. There are times when, you can be aggressive. There are times when you really Can't be. And you really have to kind of look for that. And helping players with that is the most fun. It's what makes this fun. When you see somebody who's able to do something that they never could do before, it isn't then hard to get that player to want to practice and continue to do it, because they see a reward. And they see, well, God, I'm starting to practice better. I go to the golf course and they're so nervous about it. It doesn't always transfer right away, but it'll transfer.
Over time.
It takes their own confidence. That bridge is actually their belief, their confidence level. Because, they have to prove it to themselves when they get to the course. And sometimes, their self doesn't believe it. So, once they get so that, I practice so well, I'm positive I can do it. No matter where I am, I can do it. And that's, it's like transferring to tournaments, from just regular play too.
So, Dave, one of the huge changes with golf and teaching golf has to do with technology. Can you talk a little bit about some of the changes here?
Yeah, when I first came here, that was kind of new to have a computer. And so we didn't have these studios then. We were just under the shelter there. And I'm making my first attempt at it where I'm drawing lines on a television screen, but I thought we're kind of specialists here. We get to concentrate on teaching alone. I used to, as a golf pro at a club, I had 8 other things to do, but no, we teach all the time. We must be up with technology. And at that time, it was taking video. 26 years ago, that was quite a thing, to have. Then, way it's evolved in, we have these studios where people can have things analyzed. I could analyze a person's swing without the video. I'm better with it, but I could do it. And so that I understood what they needed to do, but they aren't going to understand as well.
But so they can have a better understanding because they can see it.
Absolutely, because it isn't as important that I understand it. I'm trying to transfer that to them understanding it. And if you can show them, like a person says when I'd show them their swing, they'd say, well, that isn't me. I don't do that. I said, it looks like your hat on that video. Yeah, but I don't swing like that. And I'd say, well, let's see, that's the problem. But once they believe that, oh yeah, that is me, and what you're saying, yeah, if I thought that's what I was doing, I'm on your side. So basically, it puts you on the same side. Now, when we have a TrackMan and we can take shapes of a ball. Now, I don't need a TrackMan to tell me that the ball flew high. I don't need it to tell me it curved to the right or to the left. I can see that. But when you see that associated with a number, and they see that when they change that number, it changes that shape. And now they really start to understand the science.
What's the number?
Well, I'm talking about swing path. It tells you how many degrees right or left, for instance. And because they hit it to the left, they just swing more to the right. Well, that doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. And if a person slices the ball, they automatically swing more to the left. Well, actually, swinging more to the left isn't going to change that. But if you can show them those relationships so that their intellect can override their inclination, it really, really helps. And so I might use TrackMan the least of any other group here. And the reason is because, not to say when I see that they need to see that, I want to use it. Because, see, I'm on their side. It would really help them. As far as me, if they already know, they've seen TrackMan, they know what I mean when I say this number's here or there. They can see that. So, I don't think that the technology is the product. It isn't really. See, some people sell technology as the product. Go to XYZ, whatever, and it's technology. There never is a name associated to it, where I need a skilled person knowing how to use those tools, because I think the surgeon still needs to be the surgeon, and I think he's got a lot of machines and everything, but if he doesn't know how to operate them, I don't think it's going to be that good. So I need to know, I think teachers need to know what's going on in the business today. They should do that research for their students so they don't have to do it, and we're going to help them. So whether I'm old or young, I need to keep up with what's going on today. Well, we taught that way back then. That's the way I'll always be. No, I think everything evolves. And people are better because they're able to build on the shoulders of those that were before them. We should be better than we ever were because we got to start where the old guys left off. Thank goodness, that they now can concentrate on going further. So I think I'm envious of Patrick's awareness of what's going on in the world today more than I am, so that's why I'm excited for our students, because he's able to build on that.
So Patrick, in terms of building on that, we go to the golf shows, the West Michigan Golf Show, the Michigan Golf Show, and so on, and there's a lot of technology. Where do you start deciding what's useful and what isn't?
That's a good question, and I think the excitement about a lot of that technology is valid, but I do personally try to be careful with it to make sure that it's not there just to be there, that is actually going to be helpful for either the teacher and or the student. So, there's a pretty easy validation process with a lot of this technology. If you just look at what other successful coaches are using or what successful tour players are using. And then, of course, there's a financial part of this, too, and you have to make sure that it's worthwhile from that sense. To me, the next thing would probably be being able to more specifically measure a player's movement, body movement, so biomechanical markers. And that's been done for many years, but usually, in the past it required a laboratory, right? And they kind of keep shrinking the process, and they even have some things you can do on your phone now. I don't know about the accuracy of that, but I think that's probably the next step, is that we'll be able to take video to get a general sense of how the club and a person's body is moving, and we can use TrackMan to get an even more specific sense about how the club and the ball is behaving. And then maybe there'll be a third level where we can get more detail on exactly how some of the body movements are being measured, and that would probably be the next step.
I've never used TrackMan, but I'm about to try because I want to see where my ball goes too.
Yeah, TrackMan's interesting. It's important that anything you look at on TrackMan, you understand what it's giving you. And it's probably even more important that it can be a little deceiving too. Just because some of the numbers that it spits out could be what you're trying to do, it's helpful to get there the most efficient way. Otherwise, you're kind of tricking yourself into thinking you're doing it the right way.
So you think TrackMan's one of the really important teaching tools?
I do think it's important. I'm not sure I find it more important than video still at this point. And I also think it's important in the beginning of a process, but like Dave acknowledges, there's a point where you know what TrackMan's going to say. Either by watching the ball, the swing, or the video, it becomes a little bit redundant in terms of its information. But there's another part of TrackMan that can be used that's fun, as not just an analytical tool, but also as a training tool. So giving someone an idea like, these are the things we need to change, and here's what's TrackMan's going to tell us when we change them, and then kind of give them a goal of seeing some of those numbers come up. And TrackMan keeps kind of evolving in terms of its software to help us use it that way. So it's not just a single standalone measurement, but there's performance tests, there's activities you can do centered around kind of achieving some of those changes.
So for all those golfers who are thinking about getting back on the course in a couple of months, what's one thing they can do to get better between now and then?
I'm going to have to say two things. Number one, you got to probably start moving in a golf type fashion, because the winter comes with a lot of, maybe not moving rotationally, which is required for golf. And so those first few swings of the season they don't feel so good. So whether that means doing it at the driving range or even just in your home, just trying to start moving in a way that's going to benefit your golf swing. And then secondly, you're going to want to knock the rust off some of your ball striking skills before you probably tee it up. So maybe going to a range or somewhere where you can hit golf balls to just get familiar again with making contact with the golf ball.
Well, that kind of explains why there are so many cars here all winter long. So, Dave, Kendall, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I certainly enjoy the conversation, and I really enjoy being with Patrick and you and Art.
And Patrick, thank you very much. I've learned a lot today.
Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
You're welcome.